Oh, hello. I'm JonBenet.
When we think of childhood, we picture innocence, laughter, and endless possibilities.
I love you, and all my friends love you.
But for some, their stories take a tragic turn, leaving families shattered and communities searching for answers.
Her last words that I heard from her is, "Okay, Mommy, I will. I love you, Mommy." And that was the last I ever heard her, and I miss her voice.
From shocking crimes that shook entire nations to devastating cases that slipped under the radar, these children's lives were stolen in ways almost too painful to comprehend.
If you've got me, baby, just bring them back.
This special is dedicated to shedding light on lesser-known child deaths, stories that deserve to be heard and remembered. On December 26, 1996, the Ramsey family in Boulder, Colorado, woke to a nightmare. Patsy Ramsey found a 2.5-page ransom note demanding $118,000 for the safe return of her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet. Ignoring instructions not to involve police, she called 911.
911 emergency.
Police.
What's going on?
5515th Street.
What's going on there, ma'am?
We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please.
Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left and our daughter's gone.
A note was left and your daughter is
Yes.
gone?
When officers arrived, critical mistakes were made. The crime scene wasn't secured, and family and friends moved freely through the house, contaminating evidence. Hours later, JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, found her body in the basement. She had been sexually assaulted, strangled with a garrote fashioned from a paintbrush handle, and suffered a skull fracture.
We loved our children dearly, and yet people don't like rich people. So we kind of became that character for people to hate.
Initially, suspicion fell on the Ramseys, amplified by intense media scrutiny. However, in 2008, DNA evidence cleared the family, suggesting an unknown male intruder. Despite this, no arrests have ever been made, and the case remains unsolved. Netflix's 2024 docuseries, Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey, directed by Joe Berlinger, revisits the botched investigation and media frenzy. It includes interviews with key figures, including JonBenet's father, and explores overlooked DNA evidence and new suspects. Nearly 3 decades later, JonBenet's case remains a haunting puzzle, overshadowed by theories, controversies, and questions that may never be answered. Who could commit such an atrocity against an innocent child? Four-year-old Derek Roby was a cheerful, outgoing boy from Savona, New York, whose parents trusted him to walk just 2 blocks to his summer camp. Tragically, he never made it. His body was discovered in a wooded area, strangled and beaten with a rock. The killer was 13-year-old Eric Smith, a local boy known for his distinctive thick glasses and red hair. While Derek and Eric didn't know each other, their lives intersected in the worst way imaginable. Eric, who had endured years of bullying and rejection due to his appearance and behavioral issues, later confessed to luring Derek into the woods.
Right part area where he had hit him with his rocks all these times, he said 3, hit him in the head and there was some blood there. He took the Kool-Aid and he did his hands like this. He said, so I took the Kool-Aid and I poured it into those cuts. Those are his words. I poured it into the cuts. I said, what forever did you do that for? I don't know, I just did.
He admitted to killing him in a fit of pent-up rage and frustration, taking out his anger on the defenseless child. The crime shocked the nation, not only for its brutality, but because both the victim and the perpetrator were children. Eric was sentenced to 9 years to life in prison after being tried as an adult. Despite numerous parole hearings, he remained incarcerated for nearly 3 decades before being released on parole in 2022. While Derek's life was tragically cut short close to home, our next story takes us to Hollywood, where a young star with a bright future faced horrors hidden behind the glitz and glamour. Many of you may already know her, especially if you've been following our channel for a while. We've talked before about the heartbreaking death of Judith Barcy, a child star who captured hearts in The Land Before Time and Jaws: The Revenge. But behind her radiant smile was a dark and terrifying reality. Judith's father, Joseph Barcy, was a violent alcoholic who tormented her and her mother for years. Despite her success on screen, Judith lived in constant fear. At just 10 years old, her worst nightmare came true. One night while she slept, her father shot her in the head, then turned the gun on her mother before setting their home on fire and taking his own life. Judith's story is more than just a loss for Hollywood. It's a chilling reminder of the dangers that can hide behind closed doors and the importance of recognizing the signs of abuse before it's too late. How many others like Judith are suffering in silence? In 2022 alone, over 6,000 children in the United States were injured or killed by gun violence. According to the Gun Violence Archive, which has been tracking these numbers for 9 years, this marks the highest number of American children affected by firearms in a single year. The question remains, how many more lives will be lost before real change is made? Our next story is one of both heartbreak and legacy. It's about a little girl on a pink bike whose tragedy sparked a system that has since saved thousands of children. The girl on the pink bike. That's how many remember 9-year-old Amber Hagerman from Arlington, Texas. On January 13, 1996, Amber was riding her bike near her grandparents' home when she was abducted in broad daylight. A witness saw her being forced into a black pickup truck, but despite the quick alert to authorities, Amber's fate was sealed. Her lifeless body was found 4 days later in a creek. Her throat had been cut, and her killer has never been identified. Amber's death devastated her family and community, but it also inspired a nationwide change. Her case led to the creation of the Amber Alert System, named in her memory. This system has since become a critical tool in rescuing abducted children, saving countless lives over the years. Yet Amber's story remains unfinished. 28 years later, her family still waits for justice. Who took Amber's life?
Her last words that I heard from her is, "Okay, Mommy, I will. I love you, Mommy." And that was the last I ever heard her, and I miss her voice.
And will they ever be held accountable? As we honor the lives saved through her legacy, we cannot forget the little girl who made it all possible, the girl on the pink bike, Amber Hagerman. Rest in peace, little angel. Six years after Amber's death, tragedy struck again. In the early hours of February 2, 2002, 7-year-old Danielle Van Dam from the Sabre Springs neighborhood of San Diego, California, vanished from her own home. It was a night that began like any other but ended in unimaginable heartbreak. Danielle's parents had been out with friends, and though they checked on her when they returned home, they didn't realize until morning that she was gone. For nearly a month, the community searched tirelessly for Danielle. But on February 27th, searchers made a grim discovery: a little girl's body in a remote desert area. It was Danielle. Her kidnapper and killer? A neighbor, David Westerfield, who had reportedly been acting strangely in the days following her disappearance. Westerfield was convicted of kidnapping and murdering Danielle and sentenced to death. Yet the pain of her loss lingers, a reminder of how danger can hide in plain sight. Danielle Van Dam's story is a devastating reminder that even in the safety of our own homes, unimaginable danger can lurk nearby. Our next story takes us back to 1981, to another child who vanished in what should have been a safe and ordinary place. The aftermath of this case not only left a family shattered, but forever changed the way missing children cases are handled. It was a typical summer day on July 27, 1981. 6-year-old Adam Walsh tagged along with his mother to a shopping mall in Hollywood, Florida. But what began as a routine outing quickly turned into a nightmare that would devastate his family and captivate a grieving nation. While his mother shopped, Adam was allowed to play in the toy section of a department store. Minutes later, he vanished. Despite desperate searches and pleas for his safe return, Adam's severed head was discovered 2 weeks later in a canal over 100 miles away. His killer has never been definitively identified.
I don't know who would do this to a 6-year-old child. I can't conceive of it.
Though drifter Otis Toole confessed years later to the murder, a claim supported by circumstantial evidence but never fully resolved.
You done killed one and you kept killing and killing, it gets easier and easier and it don't really bother you.
Adam's parents, John and Rive Walsh, channeled their unimaginable grief into action. They became relentless advocates for missing children, founding the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMX. Their work has saved countless lives, transforming Adam's tragic legacy into a force for change. But Adam's story remains one of heartbreak and unanswered questions. What happened that day in the toy aisle and why? The impact of his loss continues to ripple through the lives of families across America. Adam's life was short, but his legacy is long-lasting. Rest easy, little boy. Elisa Izquierdo's life was a tragic example of how the system can fail the most vulnerable. Born to a loving father, but left in the custody of her abusive mother, Elisa endured years of torment in New York City's Lower East Side. Teachers reported her bruises, but intervention never came. Then, at just 6 years old, Elisa's mother delivered the fatal blow that ended her life. Elisa's case outraged the public, leading to the enactment of Elisa's Law, aimed at reforming child protection services in New York. But even with those changes, her death remains a haunting reminder of how bureaucracy and silence can cost innocent lives. Elisa's story leaves us wondering, how many more children could be suffering in silence? In our next story, we move from New York's Lower East Side to Hollywood, where the pressures of fame collided with danger, resulting in another young life cut tragically short. At just 16 years old, Tara Correa McMullen had already made it to Hollywood. Known for her role in Rebound, she had the talent and drive to succeed. But off-screen, Tara found herself drawn into a dangerous crowd. One October evening in 2005, outside an Inglewood apartment complex, Tara became an unintended target in a gang-related shooting. Shot multiple times, her promising life came to a devastating end. Tara's death serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of gang violence and the pressures young stars face navigating fame and personal struggles. She had everything to look forward to, yet it was stolen in an instant. As we leave Tara's story, we turn to another young star, whose life was senselessly taken in the streets of South London, a hero in his final moments. Rob Knox had just landed the role of a lifetime, securing a part in the Harry Potter series. At only 18 years old, he was on the brink of stardom. But one night outside a bar in South London, Rob's bravery became his undoing. Stepping in to protect his brother during a scuffle, Rob was stabbed to death by a man wielding 2 knives. His murder sparked outrage and ignited debates about knife violence in the UK, leading to new initiatives to combat the epidemic. Rob's courage in his final moments defines his legacy, even as his future was stolen away far too soon. As we reflect on Rob's story, our next case takes us back to the early 90s. It's one of the most infamous crimes in British history, involving a toddler and 2 boys who shocked the world with their unspeakable actions. James Bulger's story is one of the most harrowing in modern history. Just 2 years old, James was abducted on February 12, 1993, from a shopping center in Liverpool by two 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables. Security footage captured the chilling moment when James was led away by the boys, who tricked his mother into believing he was safe. Over the next several hours, Thompson and Venables subjected James to unimaginable torture. They led him on a 3-mile walk, during which they physically abused him and even tried to push him into traffic. Eventually, they brought him to a railway track where they beat him with bricks and an iron bar, tortured him further, and left him to be struck by a train. The sheer brutality of their actions stunned the world, especially considering their young age. Both boys were convicted of murder and sentenced to indefinite detention, making them the youngest convicted murderers in modern British history. They served 8 years before being released in 2001 with new identities. To this day, their motives remain unclear, though some reports suggest they were influenced by violent media and personal issues at home. James's death sparked a national debate about juvenile justice and the limits of rehabilitation. His story is a haunting reminder of innocence lost and the darkness that can exist, even in the youngest minds. The stories we've shared today are heartbreaking reminders of how fragile and precious life can be. These children, though their lives were cut tragically short, have left legacies that continue to impact the world, whether through awareness, reform, or the simple act of remembering. By telling their stories, we honor their lives and shine a light on the injustices they faced. Thank you for watching. And if these stories moved you, consider sharing to ensure their memories and lessons are never forgotten.